Hi, hello everyone. Let's wait a couple of minutes. Let's see if someone is coming today. Oops, sorry, my camera is a little bit unstable today. Okay, let's see. I'm going to start to reintroduce myself. My name is Veronica. We saw each other last week. I did like a short introduction about myself, what I do, and as you probably saw in the video that I published yesterday about the next appointment and this one, today we are going to talk about the 8 limbs of yoga. But I'm gonna wait for other people. Let's see if they comes. Anyway, hope you had a lovely week. Today is a really sunny day here in London, and even if we are in a lockdown, it's always nice to have a little bit of sunshine. So today, as I mentioned, we are going to talk about the 8 limbs of yoga. But before, of course, I start to talk about this, I want to give you like an insight and an introduction about the concept of yoga, and also where those 8 limbs of yoga come from. So let's see, I can see there are 4 people. Okay. So first of all, if you are not familiar to yoga, of course, yoga is not just related to the physical practice, so the asana. We usually attend classes, and if the teacher doesn't really talk about the philosophy of yoga, we don't really know that it's not just related to the physical posture or just the hour or 90 minutes of practice that we usually do, but it's something more. Is actually the asanas, so the posture, are just a small part of the philosophy of yoga, like I will tell you about. So first of all, the word yoga comes from the English to yoke, that it means union. It means to unite, to create a union. But also, if we think about the deep concept of yoga, it can come as well to the word yoke, where yoke is a tool they used to use to keep together 2 animals. When the shepherd has to guide the animals, was something that was keeping 2 animals together, so, and was guiding as well the movement of both animals. So when we talk about yoga, it's not just creating a union, but also cultivate the ability to control and to guide the movement of our mind. It is actually the ultimate goal of the 8 limbs of yoga. So this is in general what yoga means, because some people come to me and say, okay, what does it mean? Can you please explain me exactly what the word yoga means? And the 8 limbs of yoga are something that are described in the Yoga Sutra. So the Yoga Sutra is on Sanskrit scripture that was written by Patanjali. Patanjali was an ancient Indian sage, and in the 8 limbs of yoga, he really described how we can create a connection between our mind and our body to get to the ultimate goal of the meditation, that is the samadhi. So what he's trying to say in the Yoga Sutra is that yoga is more related to the control of our mind. Once we become aware and we become able to control our mind, we can reach this final start or state of samadhi, that is like the bliss state. But now we are going step by step. So the Yoga Sutras are 195 Sanskrit aphorisms, where exactly Patanjali described these 8 limbs of yoga. But not just that, it's just like a kind of guide to learn how we can process our thoughts, how we can deal with things actually in the daily life, and how we can connect even more to our inner world. And The 8 limbs of yoga is actually, the Sanskrit name is Ashta Anga, where Anga means parts, but usually is translated like limbs. So the 8 limbs of yoga are seen like limbs of a tree, where we have the first on the bottom, and then we go higher and higher until we reach the top one, that, as I said, is the Samadhi. So I just draw something because I don't have a board, but just to give you an idea, and we can go through every single limb of the yoga. But just to make you understand that the concept of yoga is related to how not just the physical practice, but the ultimate goal is control the mind to be able to meditate and reach this completely state of samadhi. There is this ability to create a union with everything between us and everything else around us. So the first 2 limbs of yoga are yamas and niyamas. I just created here like a draw. So yamas and niyamas, probably you can see upside down, like on the opposite way. Okay, so the first 2 that I will describe now are related to the ability to control and to guide our behavior. So, and then I will tell you the rest. Then we have asanas. There are actually the practice, like the physical practice. Then we have pratyahara. There is senses withdrawal, so how we control our senses. And then we have the pranayama. There is the breath control, so the breathing exercise. And then we have the last 3, so these 3 are related to the control of the body, our senses, and the breath. And then we have dharana, there is the concentration, dhyana, there is the meditation, and then we have the samadhi, there is the bliss, the alignment, the ultimate goal. And are related to the ability to control our mind. So the first 2, control of the behavior. The other 3 are control of the body, the senses, and the breath. And then we have there is control of our mind. So, yamas and niyamas contain other 5 parts. Okay, the niyamas, I will give you the Sanskrit names, but of course I will describe as well. So yamas the first one is ahimsa, there is no violence. It means no violence. Hi, Katia, sorry. So ahimsa is the concept of no violence. So no create, no cause harm, not just to others, but also to ourselves. It's like how we treat ourselves as well. Of course, if we think like a simple example is some people decide to become vegetarian or vegan because eating animal protein, of course, cause suffering to animals. But in general, it's the concept of no violence, to no hurt, no say something that can hurt themselves, others, or do something that can cause any kind of harm. Then we have satya, that is truth, so not lying. So be truthful with others, but also with yourself. Because sometimes we lie because we lie as a human being, but sometimes we lie to ourselves as well. So it's like when we tell ourselves story, even if we know deep inside that it's not the truth. Hi. And that is another important concept. So if we think about yamas, is how we need to control our behavior, what we shouldn't do. So no violence, no lying. The third one is asteya, that is no stealing. Again, here is not just related to, to not steal something material. We go to a shop and we can steal something. Of course, we really know that it's not about that. But sometimes it's about stealing something to ourselves as well. They can be stealing energy. Sometimes we do things, but we don't want to do. We force ourselves. So in that way, we are just stealing energy to ourselves. And this is one of the yamas as well. So be always kind with others, but also with ourselves, because we need to look after ourselves first. Then we have Brahma, there is continence. Continence in sense, so if we look at like the traditional concept of Brahma is sexual continence. So like be aware that you should you should contain yourself in terms of sexual activity or interaction. But is actually something deeper, because it is it's like contentment and be able in the same time to regulate the energy of your body. So how you use your body, how you decide to use your body. Hi Anna, hi. Thank you for joining. I hope is coming clear what I'm trying to describe. It's not easy, to break down every single, head of limb of yoga, because it's a really, really big philosophy. So it's a methodology that we should incorporate in our life. But going and break down every single step of that, it can be a little bit tricky. So that's why I try to, find simple example that can give you an idea, maybe put into practice on your daily life. So what I was saying, so Brahma, so it's continence. It's continence about, how you control your energy as well in terms of body wise as well. And because sometimes we don't set boundaries. So boundaries can be also related to the concept of Brahma. So when we set boundaries, we know that we contain our energy, and we decide to keep this energy and to look after ourselves in that sense, and not just in terms of sexual activity. And then we have the aparigraha, that is no grasping, so not being greedy. Sometimes even that, as a human being, we always want more. But if we actually realize that we can just focus on something that is really important, even in this sense, we will see how we can use the energy to focus on the important thing instead of like trying to reach something that we don't really need. So it's a little bit the concept of minimalism. So if we focus on the main three important things and we use the energy to reach those things instead to disperse the energy, we become no greedy. But sometimes, as I said, we want to reach something, we put energy in something that is not really important, and we completely forget what is really important in our life. So again here, sometimes when we don't focus on what is really important, we just get confused, and then as well it's becoming difficult to control our behavior, to control our mind. So the yamas in general, as I said, there are 4 yamas that is a kind of guideline of something that we shouldn't do. The niyamas, so the other one, we have other 5 niyamas, is the opposite, so guidelines regarding what we should do. So the niyamas, the first niyamas is saucha, that is related to the purity. So purity and purity related to mind and body, so not just body. Of course, we need to look after ourselves, we need to be clean, we have to be always clean, but it's about our mind as well. And this is important in this sense. When we think about purity of the mind, it's important to watch the dialogue with ourselves. Again, it's something that what we said before about truthful with yourself. Sometimes we just telling us stories and we create confusion. So there's not a clear thoughts, thinking process, and this confusion doesn't really create purity in our mind, but just more confusion. So purity in sense of connection, mind and body, be clean in your body, but be clean in our thinking process as well. We have santocha, that is the contentment. So that's a really tricky, actually, is a really tricky concept, because as human being it's not always easy to, hi Mirella, it's not always easy to be content with everything comes into our life. But for the niyamas, we should let be everything and be content. So find this peace of mind, the peace in our heart. Doesn't matter what's happening, doesn't matter what can happen in the future. So just be in the present and be content with what we have. That is kind of connected to the concept of gratitude. So we should be grateful anyway, and doesn't matter what's happening around. And we know that it's not easy to do it, but we can cultivate gratitude and santosha and contentment. And then we have two others niyamas. They are kind of connected between them. We have tapas, that is transformation. I love this concept of transformation. And svadhyaya, or something like that. My Sanskrit is not great. There is the self-study. Okay, so why they are connected? Because we can have transformation just if you study yourself. So if you become aware of yourself. I know seems like a concept like in the air without anything like clear. But if we think, so the self-study, the study of your inner world, it can come like in a different way. One way can be like practicing yoga, like the traditional practice. So you step into your mat, you start to practice, and then you start to become aware of your breath, of your thinking process, and what's happening around you. So, or you can watch yourself during your daily life and see, okay, my idea of something is that idea, but my action, it doesn't really match with what I'm thinking about. So when you start to study yourself and you notice the discrepancy between your action and your thinking process, I say, okay, I know that it's not easy to leave like all the patterns and start again and transform and like move on and create something new. So it's like when you need to leave your comfort zone and create something new, that can be scary. But is that at that point when you become aware of the discrepancy, something that is not matching, that you can transform, you can like start in the transformation process. So that's why I said that they are really connected between them, because there's no transformation without self-study, without being aware of how you are and how you feel and your thought. And the last one is the Ishvara Pranidhana, sorry for my Sanskrit, that is surrender. The concept of surrender, and I love this as well because I learned to surrender because of my yoga practice. If you are not familiar to yoga, there is the yin or restorative yoga. There is a kind of yoga where you have to keep the position for a long time. And the yin yoga teach you to stay still, to stay there in the moment, to let go and to let be. So when you keep the position for a long time, sometimes for people that cannot really be still, it can be really, really challenging. But also, there are some poses, some asanas that can create some transformational process. Because, for example, if we think about heart opening, there are some postures where you have to open your chest. You open your heart center, so your heart chakra. If someone is going through a really difficult moment emotional wise, and he has to keep the kind of posture that open your heart, it can be challenging, it can be emotional, the person can just struggle with the posture, but not because the posture is difficult in itself, it's just because what the person is going through in that moment. So the ability to surrender, to face the emotion, the fear, whatever is coming, and to move on as well is a kind of transformation. So those are the niyamas. They are all is a kind of guideline regarding what we should do. To summarize, yamas and niyamas, guidelines regarding what we shouldn't do, niyamas, guidelines regarding what we should do, and so both directed our behavior. So the next three are, as I said, asanas, pratyahara, and pranayama, so control of the body, our senses, and breath. So now finally we talk about asanas. So I know that sounds probably a little bit academic, but just let me know if something is not clear, if you have any question, and because as I said, it's not easy to describe in 1 hour and to explain the really deep concept of 8 limbs of yoga when Patanjali wrote 195 aphorism about them. But anyway, asanas are the postures, okay? So are like the physical posture that we perform on the mat when we go to a yoga class or we just do the self-practice. The posture, as I said, are just a small part of the concept of yoga, the 8 limb of yoga. If we think about the Patanjali Sutras, so the Yoga Sutras, we have probably 3 sutras that talk about the asanas, and we have now 195 sutras. So we realize at the point that, okay, that's not the main reason of yoga. You can practice yoga without practicing actually yoga. So, I mean, without going to a class, because you can just practice yoga like focusing on your breath, meditating. But it's part of that, because as we said, the body is important to prepare the body in order to find a correct position to start and meditate. So that's why Patanjali in the Sutra described the asanas like a so we are gonna train our body to anchor the thoughts and our mind to our body and be able to keep the position, for example, for the meditation we will see later, and without adjusting all the time. So we need to feel comfortable in our physical body in order to anchor the mind with our body and meditate. So reach the state of thinking process when the thoughts are completely steady and we can really focus in our inner core. And the problem is that because people approach yoga in this way, and unfortunately some teachers don't really talk about the philosophy of yoga, we just like focus on the practice. And it's fine, because when your body becomes really strong, your mind can be even stronger. But sometimes it's really tricky because it can be vice versa. In my case, for example, I started to practice yoga as physical activity. I was reading something, but I wasn't really clear what I was going to do. I just liked the idea that I could move my body. But then studying and then practicing all the time, I understood that how powerful can be the yoga practice for my mind as well, how my thinking process was completely changing. The problem is that asanas, the yoga practice sometimes can be a kind of playground for our ego. So people step into the class because they want to be great. They want to do like an amazing practice. They want to go upside down, do the headstand, or whatever that I do as well. But it's not just that. And vice versa can be a playground for insecurity, especially if people have problem with the self-image and they go into a class where everyone can do like amazing things. They say, okay, I'm not good enough. I cannot practice yoga because I cannot do that, and I will never reach the level. And that's a misconception and is a wrong idea of yoga, because it's not about flexibility. It's not about what you can do with your body. You can reach at the point if you keep practicing, but it's not just about that. That's why I always say to my students, and many teachers do as well, when you step into the class, you need to leave your ego outside. This is your physical practice. You are putting yourself on your practice is moving your body, but try to sit and be present in your postures, in every single posture. They can be difficult. Sometimes you feel amazing at the end of the class. Sometimes can be emotional. Sometimes you just, bring out thoughts, anger, any kind of emotion. Not every single practice is the same. Like not every single day is the same even for me. There are some days that I can really go upside down, but not just because I'm physically strong, but because my mind is in a good state. And sometimes even if I'm strong, I cannot keep a headstand because I can't, because my mind is completely over the place. So what I'm trying to say, of course, trying to give you like concrete example of the asana, the yoga is not just about the posture. The posture can prepare your body, but it's everything related to how you control your mind. And the beauty of yoga is that you learn to guide your mind and to be able to bring your mind to your thinking process, where you really want to do, where we want to go. So it's not that your mind that they control you, it's you that you are able to control your mind. And the asanas can help, of course. So the pranayama is an amazing thing. If we think, the first thing that we do when we're born is breathing, and the last thing, unfortunately, we do is, last breath as well. So the pranayama is called as breath control. Or breathing exercise. So that the breathing, before we start to talk, of course, about the breathing, so we can break down the word pranayama. The prana means life source, life energy. The prana is the chi in the Chinese medicine, the ki if we think about Reiki. So it's the life force. And yama is it means to extend this life force. So the pranayama are the breathing exercise that allow the prana, the energy, the life source, to flow into your body, or to flow in general, and create this amazing movement of the life energy. So the pranayama, okay, how the breath works first. So we know that we have an inhalation, so we inhale. Then we have the top of the inhalation. Then we have an exhalation, and then we have a bottom of the exhalation. So the normal breathing pattern is we inhale, then we exhale. So we have the top of the inhalation and the bottom of the exhalation. We can hold the breath, so we have different kind of pranayama that I'm not gonna describe all, of course, today. But if we think there is the kumbhaka, there is the breathing retention. So sometimes during the class we start to inhale on the top for 4 counts, for example. On the top of the inhalation, we have we can retain the inhalation, the kumbhaka, for 4 count. Then we exhale for 4 count, and then we can hold the breath again for 4 count and the bottom of the exhalation. So this can be like the kumbhaka or breathing retention. It's just an example. So all these kind of pranayama, of course, allow us to make the life force flowing into the body. It's like, again, when we watch our breathing, it's like that we allow the mind to anchor to our body. So we create, again, this connection between our mind and our body. And there are different kinds of breathing exercise. Usually the pranayama is done like in a seated position, so with the spine nice and tall, upright, in a really comfortable position. But some type of yoga like Kundalini, but in general now every single kind of yoga require you to use one of the pranayama, one of the main pranayama that we usually use it during the class, because it's easy to connect with the posture and also guide the body during the posture and the transition between postures, is the Ujjayi breath, or called as well Oceanic Breath. There is one actually of my favorite. So with the Ujjayi breath, we think again to the breathing pattern. We inhale through the nose, and then we close the mouth, and we exhale through the nose. And when we exhale, we contract on the back of the throat, and we create this sound that remind a little bit the oceanic sound. The Ujjayi breath is a really calming breathing exercise, even if you are not practicing. So if you're like a little bit stressed, a little bit anxious, you sit down and you start to close your eyes and breathing and like practicing the Ujjayi breath. You see how even your heart rate comes. It becomes like shallow, and then you become really calm. Your mind becomes really clear. And just listening to the sound of your breath it makes you really, really calm. Because if we think about the nervous system and the breathing, are really connected, of course. So sometimes we are really anxious, something happened, and now our breathing starts to be a little bit over the place. On the opposite, so if we control our breathing, we see that we calm down, or we can be agitated. There is like the Kapalabhati. Kapalabhati is another kind of exercise when you have the breathing, like a really fast breathing. Usually Kapalabhati is used to energize your body. Of course, you're not going to do a Kapalabhati in the middle of the night when you need to go and sleep. You might need the Ujjayi breath, the Ujjayi breathing. But if you want to like energize yourself in the morning and start your day, the Kapalabhati can be like the idea. So regulating and controlling your breathing is as well like a nice way to control your body and of course your mind. So these are like in general the pranayama exercise. As I said, we can talk about other kind of pranayama. The pranayama is again watching our breathing and make sure that you realize as well like the space between between the inflow and the outflow of your breath, the inhalation and the exhalation. Just create this energy around your body. They can make you feel better or not. As we said, it depends on the situation. So that's the control of the breathing, so the pranayama. And then we have the pratyahara. Usually we don't really talk about, people don't really talk about this, is the sense withdrawal, they say. Sense withdrawal in terms of controlling or pulling away every kind of senses that we get from outside. It can be a smell, it can be something that we can hear, something that we can see. Of course, we know that if you are really concentrating on something, it can happen that we are like really concentrating on something we are doing, someone is calling us, but we don't really hear that. So it can happen, but usually it's not really easy for us as human beings to not be disturbed from, the external environment. So the ability to focus on what we are doing and losing the connection with this like external distraction is really powerful, always in terms of meditation. Hi, Gaetano. So because we are constantly bombarded, from all this information that we get from outside, it's not easy to withdraw this external like distraction and bring the awareness back to our self-core. So this is the pratyahara. So just to summarize, we saw the breathing, so the pranayama, so the breathing exercise, the breath control. We saw the asanas, so how we can control the body and how we can use the body as well to prepare for the meditation. And the pratyahara, the sense withdrawal. So those three relate, of course, to the first two that we saw before, the yamas and namas, so control of the behavior. Asanas, pranayama, and pratyahara, control of the body, the breath, and our senses. So we move now. Hi, Alessia, yeah. We move now to the last three limbs of yoga. They are actually the last three limbs that to reach the final one, that is the samadhi. So the first one is the concentration, that is dharana. So when we talk about concentration, is our ability to keep our mind steady. And we know there is not an easy thing to reach, especially if we think about all these distractions that they come from the outside world or the external environment. And usually in yoga, to prepare for the meditation, there is going to be the dhyana, there is the next limb of yoga. We use some technique, and they are related to our ability to focus on something in particular. That it can be something internal or it can be something external. So the main technique that we use to prepare the mind for the meditation, and then to make sure that the mind is steady and the thinking process starts to become steady as well, is the Tratoka, that is basically focus on the flame of a candle. So if you start to stare like a flame of a candle, is like your focus and your mind become really steady and really concentrated on something. And at some point, we can just completely lose ourselves on the flame of the candle and concentrate just on that. Sometimes we can use other techniques. This is easy, especially for people that they need a visual thing in order to be concentrated. If we think about the yoga practice, so we have the dristi, that is a focused gaze that can be a part of our body, for example on the twisting position, on the twisting asanas, it can be the shoulder, it can be up to the sky, or if we have any forward fold, when we forward fold basically the body, so we lean forward, it can be our toe. So it can be the dristi, or it can be the middle finger if we think about position like warrior two. So again, our visual thing. Or another one can be the breathing. So when we observe and we watch our breathing, how we breathe, how we inhale and we exhale, of course, closing the eyes, concentrate on the breathing. This can be a really powerful tool as well to become concentrated and focused, and to allow the mind to become steady. And the breathing is actually really powerful if we refer again to the pranayama, how we were talking before, because the breathing allows us to keep the mind steady and to calm a little bit the thing that we call the monkey mind. It's like that we have this monkey that jump from one tree to another, and our thinking process become confusing. So when we start to observe the breathing, our mind as well start to calm down, and we start to concentrate and to bring the mind a little bit steady and calm. So this is the first process that we should do. Is not always necessary before the meditation, but of course if you are at the beginning and you want to meditate, for sure is something that can help. Or you can use any mantra, so something that you can repeat yourself on your mind. I personally find mantra really powerful for me before the meditation, because it's something that anchors my mind to the reason why I'm meditating. Maybe during the meditation process, I can just lose the mantra, I can just stop thinking about the mantra, but something that can anchor my mind to the meditation process. And then, so this is the concentration. Then we have the meditation, that is the dhyana. So describing the concept of meditation is not actually easy, because I think it's a really personal thing. Everyone can find a different way to meditate. As we said before, so you can have something that you can concentrate on, and then you can, of course, progress in the meditation. But in general, the meditation is the state where your thinking process become completely still. So before we can really shut down with everything else and allow this monkey mind to stay still on one of the limbs instead to jumping between the limbs of different trees, there is a lot to do. Some people can really meditate easily. Some others, they can struggle. Personally, as I said before, I needed a little bit of physical practice in order to prepare my body and connect my mind to my physical body and my breathing before I can really meditate. Some people, they can just sit down and start to meditate and go in this state of stillness with the thinking process that is amazing. but it's quite difficult sometimes. Very interesting, thank you. I try to focus on the breathing. Yeah, it's not easy. Why? Because when you try to focus on your breathing, probably your mind is thinking about something else. So what you have to do is maybe try to concentrate on something before, like I said, like a flame of a candle, before you start to focus on your breathing. Or you can use, as I said before, the Ujjayi breath. So the Ujjayi breath, if you try, you close your eyes, you inhale through your nose, close your mouth, and exhale through your nose, just listening to hearing to the sound that comes from your throat. It can be relaxing. Or maybe you can just, put some music on the background and start to listen as well. But, if you have music anyway, the breathing, it doesn't really sound as supposed to be. It requires practice, but the breathing is the most beautiful sound that we could hear, and it can allow us, as I said, to make the prana, the energy life flowing into our body. I think you need just to find probably like a comfortable position. Make sure that always your spine is upright, maybe against the wall. Try to not do lie down on your bed, because you can fall asleep. So there we go into the yoga nidra. There is another kind of yoga. So try to find probably the position and the current moment, and you don't have to spend so much time. Just maybe start with 5 minutes. Try to concentrate. As I said, if you want to research or you want to read about the Ujjayi breath, is the easy